All right, everyone get ready because we are going deep into some pretty spooky stuff.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
We're talking at the upcoming release of Nosferatu in the Philippines.
Okay.
And
I've heard about this.
it's not just your typical vampire movie.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because we're not just looking at a classic horror film. It's like we're looking at how a gothic European horror story is being received in a country that has such a vibrant horror tradition of its own.
It really makes you think, like how different cultures interpret horror, you know?
Right.
This GMA News online article from January 14th, 2025, it announced the release, but it really got me thinking, what are some of the hallmarks of Filipino horror, that might stand out? Against the backdrop of Nosferatu, could we see some folklore in there?
Oh, yeah.
Or social commentary that's unique to the Philippines?
I mean, it's definitely possible. Filipino horror often draws on local myths and legends, and they incorporate these creatures like, the Manananggal. That's a vampiric creature that detaches its upper torso and sprouts wings.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Aswang. It's a shape-shifting monster that preys on humans. And it wouldn't be surprising to see these elements subtly referenced or reinterpreted within the Gothic setting of Nosferatu, creating this kind of blend of cultural influences.
That's so cool. I'm getting chills just thinking about a Manananggal swooping through the shadows of a Gothic castle. Speaking of chills, did you know that Bill Skarsgård is playing Nosferatu?
Oh, wow.
He was absolutely terrifying as Pennywise in IT.
Oh, he's a perfect casting choice.
I know. He's got this way of being both alluring and unsettling at the same time. Just imagine him with fangs and a thirst for blood.
Yeah, and he's not alone. The film has an incredible ensemble cast, including Lily Rose-Depp as Ellen, the young woman, haunted by an unknown force, and targeted by Nosferatu's obsession.
Hold on, wait. We've got Lily Rose-Depp and Dafoe in this film.
Yes.
Wow, talk about a power duo.
I
mean, Dafoe is practically horror royalty at this point. He always brings this intense, slightly unhinged energy to his roles.
Yeah.
And then you have Emma Corrin, who's fresh off her incredible portrayal of Princess Diana. Jumping into a completely different genre, this cast is like a mix of seasoned veterans and rising stars, which makes it even more intriguing.
It really is. And let's not forget the director, Robert Eggers. He's the mastermind behind visually stunning and psychologically intense films like The Lighthouse and The Witch.
Oh, yeah.
I remember being absolutely captivated by the atmosphere of The Lighthouse. Eggers used shadows and silence to create this sense of dread. So I wonder if he'll bring a similar approach to Nosferatu.
That's a really good question. Knowing Eggers' style, what kind of Nosferatu do you think we'll see? Will he stick closely to the original silent film? Or will he go completely off the rails and give us something totally unexpected?
Well, that's what's so exciting about Eggers. He's known for taking existing material and then reimagining it through his own unique lens. And he often adds layers of psychological complexity and historical detail. Now, the article doesn't give us specifics about his interpretation, but I have a feeling this Nosferatu is going to be both familiar and utterly surprising.
I'm already hooked. We've got this chilling vampire tale, a director with a knack for unsettling atmosphere, and a cast that's practically bursting with talent.
Ooh,
what's not to love?
Let's not forget the cultural context. The release of Nosferatu in the Philippines. It offers this glimpse into how global cinema interacts with specific cultural landscapes, and it'll be fascinating to see how Filipino audiences, who are steeped in their own rich horror traditions, respond to this Gothic European take on the vampire myth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will they see it purely as a Western horror story?
Right.
Or will it spark conversations about similar themes and anxieties that exist within Filipino society? That's something I'm really curious to see unfold.
Me too. And I think that's what makes this release so fascinating. It's not just about a vampire movie. It's about the intersection of cultures, the evolution of storytelling, and the enduring power of horror to reflect our deepest fears and fascinations.
Horror is often a reflection of our deepest fears. But
Yeah.
those fears tend to be universal, even if they manifest in different ways across cultures. That's the beauty of art, and horror in particular. It has the power to tap into those shared human experiences.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling this is going to spark some really interesting discussions.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for this one.
You too.
I can't wait to see what people think of it.
It's going to be great.
So what do you say we move on to part 2?
Let's do it. It really is a unique opportunity to see how these cultural perspectives weave together.
Yeah, it makes you think about how some of my favorite horror movies have tapped into that folklore and mythology. Remember that scene in Pan's Labyrinth with the pale man?
Oh.
Pure nightmare fuel. It was drawn straight from Spanish folklore. It makes me wonder if Eggers might pull from some lesser-known European folklore to add another layer of depth to Nosferatu.
That's a great point. Eggers is really good at weaving those historical and folkloric elements into his films. Remember the unsettling ritualistic chants in The Witch?
Don't remind me.
He clearly did his research, and I wouldn't be surprised if he unearthed some obscure vampire lore for this project.
Oh man, that chanting still gives me goosebumps. I think what makes Eggers so effective is his ability to blur the lines between reality and the supernatural. You're never quite sure what's real and what's a figment of the character's imaginations. Just amps up the psychological tension.
Oh.
Do you think he'll lean into that ambiguity with Nosferatu, or do you think he'll take a more straightforward approach?
It's hard to say for sure, but I think he'll probably maintain that sense of ambiguity. Part of what makes Nosferatu such an enduring figure is the mystery that surrounds him. He's not just a monster, he's like a symbol of our primal fears, of the darkness that lurks at the edges of our consciousness. I think Eggers will embrace that complexity and leave us questioning what's real and what's not, even after the credits roll.
I love that. And speaking of the credits rolling, this movie is hitting theaters in the Philippines on February 26th. That's just around the corner.
Oh, I know.
Have they released any trailers or teasers yet? I'm dying to get a glimpse of Skarsgård in full vampire mode.
They have, and let me tell you, the trailers are chillin'. Eggers seems to be leaning into the classic gothic aesthetic, lots of shadows, crumbling castles, and haunting visuals, and Skarsgård, well, let's just say, he looks every bit as menacing as we imagined.
Okay, I'm adding watching the Nosferatu trailer to my to-do list, and maybe investing in some nightlights. You know this conversation. It's really sparked my curiosity about Filipino horror cinema. I feel like I've been missing out on a whole world of terrifying tales.
You definitely have. Filipino horror is like this treasure trove of unique stories and creatures. It often blends social commentary with supernatural elements, creating a potent mix of chills and thought-provoking themes.
Okay, so where should I start? If I want to get a taste of Filipino horror, before I see Nosferatu, what films would you recommend?
Ooh, that's a great question. There are so many gems to choose from. If you're looking for something atmospheric and unsettling, I would recommend Toombad. It's a visually stunning film that delves into themes of greed and ancient curses. It's a bit of a slow burn, but trust me, it'll stay with you long after you've seen it.
Okay, Toombad. Got it. I'm adding that to my watch list right now. Any other must-sees?
If you're up for something a little more experimental, you could check out Aswang. It's a found-footage style film that explores the urban legend of the Aswang. It's a little rough around the edges, but it's incredibly effective at creating this sense of unease and paranoia.
Okay, Aswang it is.
Yeah.
Found footage always gets under my skin. Anything else?
Of course. For a more classic horror experience, try Patayin sa Sindak si Barbara. It's a revenge thriller with a supernatural twist. That's considered like a landmark film in Filipino horror.
Okay.
And if you want something truly terrifying, Magandang Gabi, Bayan is a must-see. It's an anthology film with all these chilling tales that draw on Filipino folklore and urban legends. You'll never look at a mirror the same way again.
You're speaking my language. I'm a sucker for a good anthology film. All right, so I've got Toombad, Aswang, Patayin sa Sindak si Barbara, and Magandang Gabi Bayan all queued up. I think I'm ready to face my fears, Filipino horror style.
That's the spirit. I think you'll be amazed by the creativity and diversity of Filipino horror cinema. It's a genre that deserves more attention. And I think Nosferatu will really help to shine a light on this often overlooked corner of the horror world.
It's like we've embarked on this double feature deep dive. We're exploring the exciting new release of Nosferatu, and we're uncovering this whole new world of horror to explore. Wow, I have to say, this deep dive has taken us down some really cool paths. We started with Nosferatu, and now we've got a whole list of Filipino horror films to check out.
Yeah, it's crazy how interconnected the world of cinema can be. Like, one film can lead you down this rabbit hole and introduce you to all these new genres and cultures and perspectives.
Exactly. It's like we've unlocked a secret level of horror fandom. So for you, our listener, why should you care about a gothic vampire movie being released in the Philippines?
Well, for one thing, it's a chance to see a classic horror story reimagined by a visionary director like Robert Eggers, Think of it as a conversation between cinematic traditions, with gothic horror meeting Filipino folklore. It could create something totally unique and groundbreaking.
And it's a chance to expand your horror horizons.
Mhm.
We often get stuck in our familiar genres and comfort zones, but this is like stepping outside those boundaries
Yeah.
and exploring a whole new world of storytelling that you might not have even known existed.
Right. Who knows? You might discover your new favorite horror film or develop a new appreciation for cultural exchange in cinema. It's all about opening yourself up to new experiences.
Yeah. Speaking of new experiences, imagine yourself sitting in a historic theater in the Philippines. The lights dim, and Nosferatu flickers to life on the screen, and Skarsgård's haunting visage fills the frame. You can't help but feel connected to generations of Filipinos who have also sought thrills and chills in that very space.
It's a reminder that our fascination with horror, with the darkness that lurks within us and outside of us, is universal. It transcends time and place.
That's what makes it so exciting. It's not just about a movie. It's about connecting with something larger than ourselves. It's about tapping into this shared human experience of fear and fascination and the need to confront the unknown.
I love that.
Yeah.
So when Nosferatu premieres in the Philippines on February 26th, don't just watch it, experience it. Immerse yourself in the atmosphere and consider how this classic tale, filtered through Eggers' vision and the cultural landscape of the Philippines, resonates with you.
And hey, maybe this deep dive will inspire you to check out some of those Filipino horror films we talked about. You might be surprised by what you find.
The world of horror is vast and full of wonders, just waiting to be discovered.
Until next time, happy
Yeah.
viewing and pleasant nightmares.